And Thomas, moving on to your session on VCons.
Great. Thank you, Alan. Really appreciate it. Hold on now. Do you see the text? You all set?
Sorry, I just muted myself. Yes, I saw it. I can see it. You're coming through loud and clear.
Great. Thank you so much. And thanks all of you for being here. About 6 months ago, I changed my full-time job to work at a company called STROLID. And I'd like to tell you about that. And at STROLID, we have a really huge glaring problem that I'm going to tell you about. And the solution is really right in front of our heads. So what I want to talk about is thinking about conversations actually as a piece of data, as we think about other pieces of data like MP3s, etc. But before we get in there, let me just explain the problem so you understand what the solution is. I work for STROLID, and it's what we call it an automotive BDC. In the automotive space for new car dealers, the automotive BDC are the people inside the dealership that speak to the customers before they go into the showroom. And on the sales side, STROLID is the leading outsourced BDC in the United States. It's a sweet little place. It's not far from my house. I went to school right around the corner from it. Fantastic leadership and a great group of people. And one of the things that I really loved about STROLID was how real it was. And we've known each other for years, a lot of us have. I just can't step away from that much of a real look into what is real. So what I want to show you really quickly is exactly what communications looks like for STROLID. So basically, we sit between two sides of a conversation. On the left-hand side, we have car buyers that give interest in a car, either from the manufacturers themselves, through third-party advertisers like Edmunds and Cars.com. They can show up on the dealer's website, they can call the dealer, or they can email the dealer. All that stuff goes into our team here at STROLID. And we're currently running around 70,000 conversations a month, and we service about 100 car stores in the United States. After when we have these conversations, after we're done, we pass them down into the dealership. Dave Sinclair Ford is a great example in St. Louis, Missouri. When we have customers that want to come in to look at a car or have a question, we talk directly with Dave Sinclair, either through a WhatsApp channel, through email, or some of the industry CRMs that exist. Vin Solutions is one of them for us. And so here in STROLID, we're kind of in between all these great conversations. And because it's a general public on the left-hand side, who knows how they're going to start, and who knows, a very wide range of interest there. So after the conversation is over, basically we have the same sort of behavior, which is, we have to call Dave Sinclair Ford and say, hey, Dave, here's the iCal for the appointment, and here's a V card for the contact. But the one thing we can't say is what he said, because I wish we could sometimes say, hey, listen, here's the customer, here's what he's actually said. And we can't say it because we can't forward the conversation. We can forward everything else, but not the conversation itself. Now, and that puts us in a really interesting spot as a company. And I don't think we're unique at all. Any sort of inbound contact center would have the same sort of issue. We create lots and lots of data, but we can't process it, share it, and analyze it. Not in a standard way. If you could wave a magic wand and change business, I would say one of the ways you could have done it 100 years ago would be to capture everything the customers told you, all of it, and to be able to store it, analyze it, search it, and leverage it. But that wasn't available. But imagine if it were. Imagine all the things you could have done if you had actually captured all that really valuable data. So here's an example of how we have to go to it. So when we sit down with our owners of the dealerships every month or so, our support team sits down and says, "Hey, here's some of the calls that we've heard, and we think we should look at this or work on that." And that's hard. It's a hard thing to do. You have to schedule a time. You've got to bring them onto the same conference. We got to bring up the site. We have to play it for them and work with them. It's not exactly easy or convenient or quick. It's heavyweight. It's not easy. So we've had problems like this in the past. Like how do you share an appointment? How do you actually send the exact details of an appointment between two parties, either an email or how would you do that? And of course, we know how to do that. We do it with iCal. And this micro format was developed, 15, 20 years ago, along with the others like VCards, to allow information systems to do data interchange for business purposes. And one of the things that we never really got to was conversations, and I can imagine why. It requires a lot left for us to do on our side. But today in the modern age, it sort of feels like if conversational commerce is a thing, and if conversations are a thing, and they clearly are a thing, we ought to be stepping forward with at least a standard way of sharing them, exporting them, and describing them. And this is what I'm suggesting. So this standardized conversation format, and which I imagine it would be very, very much like the VCards and the iCals, and I think we should call them VCons because why not, right? It seems to follow the pattern. It's pithy. It's 2 syllables, all that stuff. And so just I want you to imagine just for a second what it would be like to describe a conversation, because exactly what is a conversation? That's one of the weirdnesses of communications, and I'll just point out one technical thing right away. So one of the interesting things about voice conversations is, thank God for the ringing phone, that it starts on a thing and it ends on a thing. Messaging isn't quite the same thing. There's no session layer usually with SMS. So we've got different models of connectivity. But if you just step back for a second and really bring it to, you realize that conversations are complex, but not really complex. There's many different media things which can happen, and perhaps it's not one discrete point in time. Maybe it's many phases of a conversation, but all of the underlying elements are defined. So that we know what the data types are. So what would they be? Maybe a transcript of that conversation, maybe a link to a video, maybe a link to the audio. Maybe there be some information about the participants in that call. So this person talked to this person. Here are the transcripts of that call. Here are the messages between them. Here is the video call that occurred between them. And then maybe metadata, ways in which we can take these VCons and then expand on them and give an added semantics and value on top of them. So imagine if we had VCons. Our community could write tools to share, store, and process conversations. There's no way for me to do that in my community, and there's no way for you to do it in your community in a standard way because we haven't agreed on how to do that. So if we had it though, we could put these pieces together. Or if we had VCons, our community could build businesses based on analytics and authenticity of conversations. So just imagine that you had a service that was having conversations, and you wanted to know every time an agent was angry and inappropriate. You want to govern your agents. Well, if you had a VCon for every conversation your agents had, then you could have a business that would say, "Hey, listen, I'll listen to your conversations and tell you if your customers are happy or your agents are angry." Do that. But it's a bigger problem than that. See, with if you had VCons, then legal authorities would be able to assert what was said and who said it. Just imagine the transformation that would occur in this crypto world, in this Ethereum smart contract world, where we have conversations which are attached to legal contracts. We have conversations which are elements inside an active network, just the data of them. We've gone so far in AI, on all the processing of how we're going to deal with all this data, yet we haven't established what the container for the data should be. It's a simple matter to look at the shipping industry before the advent of container ships and container shipping, right? It's just the way in which the market blew up was incredible. And just as I know, we actually had a conversation about this earlier at TADHack, which was really good. But here, dear mobile carriers, please consider the certificate authority business to authenticate conversations. It could really be an incredible offer to you to be able to say, we validate that this conversation actually happened between these two people. Just imagine the power that would have. So if we had VCons, all software could use conversations, not just yours, right? We're into conversations. We write code. We build communication systems, but database people don't do that. Vertical people, business logic people don't do that. Imagine the business logic of an enterprise application that said, hey, listen, we want to make sure we know that when someone asks for this product, we send it to the product owner. Silos are tough. And without those silos, we could take conversations as a generalized idea for software in general. Here's another one. If you had VCons, your security team could validate that a conversation, this very conversation, includes PII. I don't know how many times you've been asked by enterprise security departments, what's your PII strategy on your communications? Is there any there? Can you guarantee there's no there? Well, I had a VCon, I could do that. So, sure, we run VCons through this PII detector, and that's how we know there's no PII. Maybe we have a PII remover, and it just takes a VCon on one side and removes a PII, so it's clean on the other side. So what does this mean? So what I've asked Alan to help me with, and what this is a call for now, is for us to think about working together as a community, and I'm raising my hand saying I'm up for it, to work on what could become a VCon standard. And I'd like to, we've all been around the standards universe for a while. I'm more of an RFC guy than I am an ITU guy. I'd like to start practically and start in the GitHub way and make an open source reference implementation for VCons. To say, hey, listen, here it is. Here's how this community is working together to make an asset that we can use to define VCons. And then through next year, we can put out prizes for the TAD hacker saying, we're looking for the best VCon hack this time, and sponsor that. And eventually one day, maybe we'll actually have a standard like vCards. If you want to read it, RFC 6350 is the vCard standard. It'd be really kind of interesting to put that together, to really start to move, our field really into where the game is, which is conversations. So that's if you can help, let me know. Please reach out. That's my email address. I'm Howe Thomas at GitHub. And thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
That was excellent. Thank you so much, Thomas. I'm just opening up the chat just to see if we got any questions there. For the few people that are left, do you have any questions? As you know, I'm a big supporter of what you're doing here, Thomas. I think that this is something that TED Summit TADHack will try our best to drive this forward and bring more people in to make this happen. Because again, with all the best things, it's intuitively obvious we should have been doing it years ago. So let's just get it done now.
I think so.
Yeah. Kalyan, were you going to say something?
Yeah, not a question, but a discussion. So a couple of points. First, your presentation is different. I can see you. I can see your slide. I don't know how you have done.
I uploaded myself into the Matrix.
I want to know how did you do that?
By the way, I can tell I use Prezi, Prezi. It's a great tool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Second, part of your proposal was like, detecting the emotion, identifying the transcript and who said what, and audio and video, right? I don't know if this is what you mean, but I have gone through uh, another company that Alan also says a lot about sponsoring this TAD hack. They are Indian founders, but now moved to this conversational AI platform.
Mm-hmm.
Alan, can you?
Oh, Symbol.ai?
Yes. Mm-hmm. So
yeah.
I have gone through Symbol.ai examples. So what they do is they take the audio or video and then they diarize the speakers, which means first it will identify how many are there. Then
right, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Then by some algorithm, it will split the audio. Let us say there is a 10-minute audio. 2 minutes you spoke, 2 minutes Alan spoke, 2 minutes I spoke. So it shows the audio like from this point to this point, Alan has spoken. From this point to this point, Thomas has spoken. Like that. And then it also transcribes.
Mm-hmm.
And then it also evaluates the emotion. And then it also evaluates the, like, in this whole conversation, I will ask, how did you do your presentation? So it will point out that an action point is something like the question, how did you do this? Mm-hmm. To that, you might have answered something. So that is the answer. So I don't know if it completely solves this purpose, but but partly, yes, identifying the speakers, who said what is the duration when they spoke,
right,
what exactly they spoke.
That's great. So yes and no. So what I'm suggesting is that there's probably more companies than that are exporting their conversations in whatever formats. The issue is that I can't export a conversation independently and have any sort of faith that the next person down the line will support the same format. It's an agreement of how we describe conversations so that independent efforts can accept, source, and sync them. So here's a for instance. Maybe someday in the future, we have a document database where the documents are conversations. And we say in Mongo, please select all conversations that are angry. And so the question is, how does it get filled in? If Twilio and Symbol AI and all in the right down the list have agreed on the standard, and then they can all put in the same database. It's the same thing we had to do with telephony the first time. That's why we have the ITU. How does G711 work? How does G723 work? Well, we have to define them because there's more than one manufacturer of them. And that's what I'm saying. That and then what we figured out, once we had that, then other things happen. So here's a for instance. Transcription is lossy, right? If I were to transcribe your voice, I would have all the words that you said, but I would entirely lose the intonation, the accent, whether that you were young or old, woman or man, any of the other things that I could determine from your voice. Are you lying? Are you honest? All these things I have lost in the transcription. Now, some people don't care. Some people, couldn't care less about that part of it, but other people do. And so to be able to understand the use cases around conversations and then have a data format which will carry the information in a lossless and appropriate fashion is the goal. That's what we need to do, because it's not something I think we could have done earlier in the industry. I don't think you could have done it 20 years ago, especially because of the silos that we had, right? Remember, it's not still kind of true, but shoot, not too long ago, voice people went to the voice show, messaging people went to the messaging show, video people went to the video show, and chat isn't SMS. They have their own show,
yeah,
right? And so I don't think we actually had enough of a commonality. I think we do now.
Exactly. And that actually came up yesterday in the keynote from Radisys, where they were giving an excellent demo of their in-call assistant. And I was like, we've been discussing this for a decade now. Why hasn't it happened? And, Adnan's response was, well, technology wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
And it's only now that the technology, the users, all the piece parts are to a point where, as you're rightly pointing out, we can create a open standard that enables, because conversations have been held within Genesis, within Avaya, within so many CRM platforms, not shared.
Okay, and just imagine one day when I'm gonna leave Twilio for Telnex, which every smart person would.
Yep.
And I have all. I'm not going to charge you for that, David. I have all the conversations I had with Twilio, and now my infrastructure is on Telnex.
Yeah.
Do I have to migrate all the data now?
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh my God, that's horrible, right? And we also talked about it yesterday, Alan, when we were talking about how basically today in telephony, there's really two basic flavors. There's the basic Twilio, Telnex piece parts, then these large integrated apps. That's where we're going to, right? But there's not a lot in the middle to make these apps more quickly. This is the real foundation of it, saying, listen, we're going to use data conversations as a data type. That way, my architectures, I can have a block that says I'm going to remove PII. I'm going to do a sentiment analysis, and I can do best of breed. I can select them.
Exactly.